Warning, this content is for entertainment and educational purposes only. All right, Gym Bros, what's up? It is Big Paul here today. And this one has been requested by a lot of people. I've had people all the time saying, let's see your blood work. Let's see what it looks like, big guy. Let's see how bad it is for being 50 years old and being on steroids. We want to see it. We want to know what your blood work looks like. Well, I've been reluctant to do it because I don't want to hear shit from people, but I'm going to share it with you. The good, the bad, the ugly, where my blood work is at currently. This was done about, 2 weeks into my new cycle, which is 600 test, 400 of a combo of Primo and Mast. So it's 200 each. And I'm running I think 9 units of GH a day. That's what I'm running right now. And I'm going to dig into all of it. I'm going to show you where my blood work's at. And some of it's good, some of it's not so good. The stuff that's not so good really doesn't have anything to do with PEDs. It's from me just being dumb and not taking care of myself. But I'm going to be honest about it. I'm going to share with you everything I have. And hopefully you find it helpful. Before we dig into all that, I want to remind you folks about my cycle cheat sheet, the ultimate cycle cheat sheet. It is a 30-page Cliff Notes version of how to put a cycle together effectively. It has PED profiles. It has blast and cruise structure. It has things about GH, insulin, peptides, side effect mitigation. It is the short version of how to do all this stuff. It just has the information you need without having to read a novel of a book. I think it's probably the best resource out there that's consolidated on PEDs. If you want something more detailed, I do have the Science of Anabolics and PEDZ course you could check out as well at my website, Anabolic Bodybuilding. There is a link to both in the video description below. It's only $30 for the cheat sheet if you want to check that out. And if you're interested in the e-course, I have that too. Enough about that. Let's dig into my blood work in just 1 second. All right. I get my blood panels done every couple months. I don't know, 4 times a year, 5 times a year, 3 times a year. I don't know particularly, but every couple months. I like to do it sort of at the start of a blast, cruise at the peak of blast. Actually, my blood work was better at the end of contest prep this year than it is right now. I'm just coming off of essentially 6 months of TRT plus. Bodybuilding TRT, whatever you want to call it, that I did. But this was about 2 weeks into the cycle. I get everything checked. I also, I went in for doing a full physical. I had an electrocardiogram, which was fine. Everybody's always talking about heart enlargement. My ejection fraction was 54%, which is, for my age, is great. I do have a slight heart arrhythmia that I've had my entire life. It's been there since I was in college. I found out back then when I was having a sports physical done. It's just something I've had. I keep an eye on it. Hasn't changed. Hasn't caused me any issues, but who knows? You never know when your time is up. I just live my life. But other than that, cardiovascularly, I think I'm decently healthy. There, I had calcium CT score, or calcium CT test on, which is 0. My lipids are in line, but I do some things to manage my lipids. Hey guys, go to freak out. Oh my God, you take a statin. It's always crazy to me how bros freak out about taking a statin, but they'll take Tren made in somebody's bathtub in Tijuana. They're not concerned about that, but they're worried about a statin, which has a 30-year safety record. It's just mind-boggling to me that that's something that dudes are actually concerned about. So right now, my total cholesterol is 147, triglycerides 108, cholesterol to HDL-C ratio is 4.9. That's really what we're concerned about. My HDL was low, but the ratio is good, so it's not that big of a deal. Everybody that takes PEDs is going to have suppressed HDL. I look at hundreds of blood panels annually. I do blood work review for people, so if you ever want to book a consult call, I do have that. You can grab a consult call on my website, Anabolic Bodybuilding. We can go through your blood work together and talk about strategies for improving it. But I almost never see anybody with normal HDL. The only time I've ever been able to get mine up in normal range is just doing a shit ton of flax oil and also tossing in some niacin, but I have a love-hate relationship with niacin. I like it. Basically just makes me break out in fucking hives when I take it. I'm gonna get some no flush. I've heard the no flush niacin doesn't improve HDL that much. I've seen where regular niacin can improve HDL by up to 30%. I mean, we're talking about it, you know, if I'm at 30, maybe I can bring it up to 40. But usually in the 30s is about as good as it gets when you're on PEDs, or it's just how it is. So the only thing you really can control is your LDL, so keep your LDL lower. So my current lipid control protocol is 3 grams of fish oil, citrus bergamot, red rice, yeast extract. I don't remember the doses, so I didn't put them in here. 10 milligrams of rosuvastatin. I am going to make a video soon, probably in the next week or two, about how PEDs skew lipids, why you're an idiot if you eat a bunch of saturated fat and take PEDs, and how we can mitigate some of that risk. So keep an eye open about that. I am going to add some add in some niacin soon. My ejection fraction was 55, by the way. I had that wrong, so the calcium CT score was 0. All right, so next up here, this is where shit gets fucked up. For those of you that don't know, I am a type 1B diabetic. It is an uncommon type of diabetes. I believe I have been this my entire adult life. I just found out about it, I don't know, 6-7 years ago, something like that. Probably before I kind of got back into my bodybuilding journey. I've had to manage and keep an eye on this while I am bodybuilding. I am not insulin resistant. That is not the issue. It's not the fat person's type of diabetes. I stay, 10-12% body fat or lower year round. It is not insulin resistance. It is pancreatic insufficiency. My pancreas does not make enough insulin. Period. I'm at the point where I don't even know if it makes any insulin at all, so I'm essentially full-blown type 1 diabetic at this point. I apologize if I sound like I'm breathing heavy. I have a cold. My lungs and my nose are all stuffed up. So my hemoglobin A1C was 10.6, which is fucking terrible. That's the worst it's ever been. The absolute worst it's ever. Usually, if I'm managing my type 1B diabetes correctly and taking my insulin and doing the things, tracking my blood glucose and doing all the stuff that you should be doing, I can get it down to around 6. That's usually about as good as I can get it. I think after contest prep, it was in normal ranges. It was in the high 5s. But if you're diabetic, I know that's not great for a normal person, but if you're diabetic, that's about as good as it gets. This was fucking horrible. My fasted glucose level after fasting for something like 16 hours was 148. Not good. And I'll tell you why. It's because since my show, I haven't been following a structured diet. I haven't been measuring my food. That's part of it. But I had also gotten to a point where when I was carefully managing things, when I was doing intermittent fasting, when I was measuring and weighing all my food, I got to the point where I could get away with only taking the Lantus and Humalog on my high days, and I didn't have to take it the other days, and I was keeping my A1C and my blood glucose levels close in range. And I fooled myself into thinking that I could just do that all the time, and I got extremely lazy post-show because I just was exhausted from, not making excuses for myself, but I spent like the last 5 years weighing and measuring every single ounce of food that I ate, and I just kind of got away from that. This A1C is a measurement of your blood glucose. It's the glycation, if I'm saying that correctly, of your red blood cells, but it's over like a 90 to 120 day period of time. So this includes the holidays, my vacation, Christmas, a bunch of eating. I've been eating a few too many desserts, probably a little too many Swedish fish here and there. And I wasn't really being that great about tracking my blood glucose, or I would have been on top of this. And clearly I let it get out of control. How my lipids are not further skewed beyond this is crazy to me, because usually when I am not managing my glucose well, my triglycerides get out of whack. Maybe it's the statins and my other health protocols and just the fact that I work out that kind of kept me in check. But this is not great. This is pretty terrible. So I need to get this fixed. I am working on it. I'm going to be working with my doctor. I fooled myself into thinking that I didn't need to take Lantus every day. I need to be on a CGM, maybe an insulin pump at this point. I've been trying to avoid using an insulin pump, but maybe it's just to that point where I need an insulin pump so I don't have to think about it and let the insulin pump do its work. And that's just kind of where I'm at this point. Anyway, that is the dirty part of my blood work. So let's look at kidneys. Kidneys are always a concern when you are when you're a bodybuilder, and especially as a diabetic. A lot of diabetics end up with kidney disease because high glucose levels destroy the nephron in the kidney, and you end up with filtration issues later on down the road. It's one of those long-term things. And my eGFR, I would say, has been on the lower end of the normal range for years. It's pretty static. It's been right here for the last few years. Now, I had a small trace amount of protein in my urine on this most recent physical. Doctor just thinks it was from my blood sugar being too high because my eGFR was fine, but I'm going to follow up and make sure all that's okay. But kidneys are always a concern here. So you can see here, my eGFR from the traditional reading was 66. My creatinine was just a tad high, 1.32. Everybody that lifts weights has a slightly elevated creatinine. It's barely over. Cystatin C was 1.03. It was a little bit higher than what I would like, but that shows an eGFR of 78 without the weight calculated into it. Now, if you go to the National Kidney Foundation website, they have new formulas for calculating eGFR based off of cystatin C, serum creatinine, your age, your sex, and your body mass and height. Through that calculation, I am at between 91 and 103. I had my kidneys checked out last year. I had an ultrasound. I saw the nephrologist. I had everything checked out. They said they were fine. I don't know. So anyway, that, I'll probably get that checked again. Liver, this is a testament to Justin Harris's Troponin Nutrition's QRF supplement. It works. My AST and ALT were 22 and 31. Not bad for a guy that works out. I will almost always see dudes with elevated AST that lift and train hard. I did take 2 days off from the gym before I got my blood work done to let that settle down a bit. GGT was 32, which is an indicator of liver stress. It's probably more accurate for bodybuilders. It costs extra to put it in your blood work, but it's a better indicator of actual liver stress. So liver health is great. No liver fat in my, liver ultrasounds. I had one done a year ago. I had some liver fat. That's all. Another concern when you're diabetic is liver fat accumulation. I had some, 6-7 years ago before I got back into bodybuilding. My first contest prep, I was able to eradicate that. Going back to the blood sugar thing, I was just thinking about that again. There's going to be a lot of people talk about taking a GLP-1. I am currently on retatrutide with the hope that maybe that would increase some pancreatic function. But if my pancreas is fried, it's fried. It's not going to make any difference there. Probably it will help with some insulin sensitivity and glucagon management and things like that. But I am on retatrutide now. We'll see what happens. T3 uptake. My T3 uptake is always high. By T3, I have a fast metabolism. I just burn through calories. Also, being type 1B diabetic, anybody who's a type 1 knows that it's hard to gain weight. It's one of the downsides of being, it's like the exact opposite of type 2. They used to call it wasting disease, I think, before it was diabetes, because people would just basically die of malnutrition because their body couldn't uptake any nutrients because there was no insulin present. So for those of you, the insulin will kill you crowd, not having insulin will kill you. Actually kill you. Yeah, so my metabolism's fast. My T3 uptake's always between 35 and 40. T4 is normal, TSH is normal, free T4 index is normal. I just have a high metabolism. CBC, you can see all this, platelet count. When we're looking at red blood cell count and stuff, when you see high RBC and high hemoglobin and hematocrit, I don't get too concerned if platelets are normal. My clotting factors are normal. All my immune system markers here are normal. Everything looks normal here. I have had a past history of cancer. I've had cancer twice. I've had all the lymph nodes removed in my neck. I had a malignant melanoma twice and had some surgeries to remove that. And so this is always a concern for me. That was clear. For those of you that follow me knew that I crashed my estradiol at the end of my last contest prep. Then I started a cycle up and kind of canceled that cycle with EQ. I could never get my estrogen back up until I threw a little bit of prophylactic D-ball in, 25 milligrams a day for like a few weeks to get that back up. My estrogen was crashed for about 4 or 5 months. Like, I'm talking like 6 or 7 is where it was at. Finally got my estrogen back up. It's a little high. I don't know. I like it in the 50 to 60 range. And in my off season, I feel good there. I get much higher than that, I start having issues with erectile dysfunction, but it's not too terrible right now. So, and I would assume that since I started my cycle with Primo, that's probably going to come down to a certain degree. RBC, hemoglobin, hematocrit, you can see this. This is pretty typical for bodybuilders. My hematocrit is 52.9. My red blood cell count is 5.91. Hemoglobin is 18. Well, we'd like that to be a little bit lower, sure. One of the things that I've seen recently, though, is a lot of guys go donate blood, and they donate blood too frequently. I even had a client that was going to 2 different donor banks to donate blood. And then you end up making yourself anemic. Guys end up with iron deficiencies, low ferritin, B12 deficiencies, and they end up feeling like dog shit, making themselves severely anemic, and then you have to address that. So if you're donating blood too often, that can be a problem. I would say once every 4 months is probably the max you'd want to do it if you want to donate blood. And there's evidence now that this doesn't seem to affect, unless you have clotting disorder, it's not really that big of a risk factor unless you're above 55. I don't know. I see this on every single, this is just normal for anybody running PEDs. This is just how it is. Even on TRT. And the weird thing is like what I've seen, it doesn't matter if you are on 200 milligrams of testosterone or 2,000 milligrams of testosterone. The elevation seems to be the same. I'm not worried about it. 53 hematocrit, I'm not too worried about it. Immune system, I already showed this. That was fine. CMP with electrolytes and everything, sodium, potassium, chloride, calcium, protein in my urine, globulin, all that stuff was normal. And that's pretty much it, folks. Some other stuff I didn't put on here. Vitamin D was normal. My ferritin was normal. B12 was normal. I don't do the apolipo test on everyone because they're just expensive. I do them like once a year. Nor what I've seen normally, if my cholesterol is normalish range, that those are fine too. That's generally what I've seen from blood work. But if you have the money to burn, go for it. They're expensive. Or if your doctor will order it, then that's great. I think they're like another $150 or $200 if you're ordering blood work on your own. So I saved a little bit of money on that and didn't do it this time. Anyway, that's my blood work, folks. The A1C, the issues that I have on my blood work are my fault for being a slack ass with taking my insulin, from not paying attention to my glucose readings, assuming that I can get away with just taking Lantus when I eat a high meal day. Apparently I need to, who would have thought, be more regular with taking my insulin and not forget to take my insulin. I just forget to take it sometimes. So I need to be more diligent about that and get that back under control. Get that. Obviously, I can't walk around with a A1C of over 10. That is not healthy. That'll, that's, eventually you go blind. You end up having limbs sawed off, that kind of shit. That's not what is good. But everything else, the PED related stuff is fine. The kidney stuff, I'm just going to keep an eye on. Doctor seems to think they're fine. I don't know. I'm not running any kidney supplements right now. Maybe I'll add something in. I don't know how much astragalus makes a difference. Some people say it does, some people it doesn't, but I don't know. Maybe I should add some in just in case. Anyway, folks, that's all I got on this one. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. I'm sure there's going to be some dummy that's going to come in here and tell me how I'm going to die. I've got news for you. We all die sooner or later. How we live our life between the day we are born and the day we are in the dirt matters more. To me, anyway. Again, the safest thing to do is sit on your couch and do nothing, but that's no way to live a life, in my opinion. But you do you, bro. I do me. I appreciate all your support, folks. Take care. For coaching or consultations, head over to www.anabolicbodybuilding.com to book your spot today. I can help you with optimizing hormones, fat loss, muscle gain, physique, athletic performance, nutrition, and health. For more information, shoot me an email at bigp3rd@gmail.com.